some child or whatever it is could give you that disease.
I don't know,
It's
it's
where you
only
lose your
out of course, I don't know.
She's
I
gonna
will
have
check into
hips
it tomorrow.
and knee replaced, but that's not from the cold.
But
But it's the same disease.
All right, you guys ready?
Yeah, you're right.
Alright. We'll call the Vermillion County Council meeting to order, please. If you'll please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Alright. Roll call, Mr. Costello.
Here.
Mr. Weir.
Here.
Mr. Somerville.
Here.
Mr. Bush.
Here.
Mrs. James, I'm here. Mr. Dreer.
Here.
Mr. Brown.
Here.
Alright. First item is approval of minutes. We have two sets of meeting minutes, one from the June 14th meeting, regular meeting, and we also have a set from a special meeting on June 29th. Are there any corrections, additions, deletions, anything that needs fixed that anyone sees? Any corrections? Comments?
You gonna do them one at a time?
Yep, I'll do them one. So the first one would be the June 14th.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of the June 14th meeting.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Weir, a second from Mr. Brown to approve the council meeting minutes from June 14th, 2021. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Minutes are approved. And then we have the minutes from June 29th.
Motion to approve.
I'll second those.
Okay. I have a motion from Mr. Bush, a second from Mr. Costello to approve the county council meeting minutes from June 29th, 2021. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Minutes are approved. Next, we have the treasurer's report. There's also a statement of the trust Indiana accounts and a listing of the interest earned for June. Florinda's here if you have any questions for her. Any questions? All right. Please note that we received the treasurer's report. Thank you, Florinda. Next, we have the comp time report. Any comments regarding comp time?
Is the differences month to month? Is like any difference shown in column E for the previous month? Is that right?
From the last time you got the report, so yeah, that would be
So like, someone in extension, is that like 56 hours in a month?
that would be fair.
Fair? Is that what that's for? Okay.
Yep.
That would make sense. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, we'll move on to transfer of funds. We have one transfer that needs approval tonight. The transfer is for $675. They're moving it from publications to supplies. It was the invoice behind the request form was inadvertently played out of the wrong account, so they're just asking to transfer that money back over.
Motion to allow.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bush, a second by Mr. Brown, to transfer the $675 from publications to supplies. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Transfer is approved. The remaining transfers of funds are reporting only. If you have any questions on those, we can address them. Annie also sent them on an email at a time. She's also printed them for us. Any questions for other transfers? For the reporting only. All right, we'll move on to the additional appropriations. The first additional appropriation is we have from Cume Bridge. It's for $104,000 for material for bridge repair. The bridge was hit by a drunk driver and did a considerable amount of damage to the whole structure. There's also supporting documentation behind the request form. And Commissioner Britton is here for questions as well. There is partial insurance reimbursement on that, correct? No?
He didn't have any insurance.
He didn't have any insurance?
We are pursuing it. The county attorney's been instructed to pursue the activities to reduce the monies that we're spending.
Okay.
Very good.
So has a judgment been filed against him or anything?
Don't know yet. We'll have to ask the county attorney tomorrow night as to where we're at. We just got word probably 2 weeks ago of the accumulated funds that we received on that. So
This bridge is closed.
one lane is open.
This is
It
south.
will be closed when we go to repairs. But it's one lane open at this point.
This Timber Bridge, right? Timber Bridge.
Yes.
Yeah, this is just south of the mine. It used to be the mine.
It's, if you go to Universal, it's just due south of Universal, right next to Hall's Flat.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. I call it the mine. I guess it used to be Peabody.
Gin.
Yeah.
There is another request after this one for an additional bridge repair, and we have already approved one bridge repair earlier for District 3. The original 2021 Cume Bridge budget was $678,000. Do you know what bridges that was set aside for?
I believe that was for number 90, up at Spring Tree.
Is that work still anticipated to be done this year too?
Yes, it'll be going out for bids tomorrow night, and oh no, for that, the money's already allocated. So bids that were supposed to be prepared tomorrow night, it looks like they're gonna be a day late then.
Okay.
And once we have the bids together, we'll go out to bid. We're still shooting for a completion date of October 15th.
So, to make, I guess, Commissioners Highway Department aware, in your Cume Bridge Fund, I believe there's about, is it $300,000 each year? It gets added into that account. And so we're spending way more than what we receive into that account for this year by doing all these bridge repairs in 1 year. If we approve the budget, which has already been approved, plus the additional we've already done for the bridge in District 3, and then these two bridges as well, your balance will be almost depleted. So, as a budgeting process for next year and so forth, you will not have as much money to work with next year if we approve all of these this year.
Well, the problem with the county is that nobody's ever sat back and tried to determine what condition our culverts are in, what our bridges are in. And so, it was just by gosh, by golly, and let's put some money to something, and maybe we'll spend it, maybe we won't. Right now, we're going through a PACER program that'll start up tomorrow. It should be state of the art. We have people coming to actually look at what we're going to be trying to do with this. But we'll be rating our roads and prioritizing those. It's not everything done in the county that I know of. There's an intent to do it just because of community crossings. It's not really, you know.
So, I mean, PACER has nothing to do with the Cume Bridge budget.
I'm getting there.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
So we're going to be rating all of our roads. At the same time as we rate our roads, we're also going to be rating our culverts and our ditches and our signs when that comes through. Then we're gonna go back to the Bridge and Cume Fund, actually we'll be doing that before that gets completed. And we have reports that have never been used that come from Clark Deeds, which rates all of our bridges, and the state pays for that to be done. We're gonna go back and start looking and prioritizing those bridges as to when they should be replaced, looking at them and providing an actual budget for the council. How anybody was doing this before, I have no idea. But it was a budget just saying, we spent this much last year, it looks like, and we'll add 2%, or we know we're going to do one bridge because it's falling down, or something to that effect, and that was the extent of it.
And that's kind of where we've fallen with this. This is a repair that has to be made now, because I mean, obviously, we didn't plan for a drunk driver to hit.
I'm not-
But,
Well, bridge number 90 wasn't done that way, it was just somebody, well, it was on the list of being very poor.
mhm.
But it was done backwards even. We bought the bridge and then we decided to engineer it after the back. Well, actually, it wasn't even going to be engineered, it was just going to be built, and that would be a problem too. But anyway, we're not doing things, we're getting things back into a pattern in which we'll do things in a specific order, and we'll have a budget of which we'll look at all of our bridges in particular, and we'll look at when we can do those. We'll work with the council as far as the budget goes, but to just assign numbers to it because of what happened last year or even what happened this year it just doesn't seem to be a proper method.
No, you're fine. I don't know how much experience you have with the biannual bridge inspections that are required, the ones that Clark Deeds does. All those projected construction, maintenance and needs, updates, replacements, that's all in there. It should be. So you should know 5 years out what bridges, they're gonna say, in 2022, these 2 bridges need replaced. And, it should all be in those front 20 pages of that report.
And it is, and right now we got started on the first 2 years of it.
Mhm.
So
There's a lot of maintenance items in there, but as far as the scheduling goes, that's always been in there. Now, what people did with that information here, that's different, but it's
I
always,
agree.
yeah.
But right now, we're on year 3, and we've not started year 1 in that manual, or looking at that manual. The other problem with it is that it didn't account on funding. We were already past year 1 and maybe year 2 before funding was even going to be available for it.
Sure.
They didn't even take that into consideration when the report was prepared. We just went and started today and.
Yeah, I don't think the reports, though, I don't think they don't weigh your ability to fund these projects. It's just strictly based on conditions of the bridges.
When I talked to Clark Deeds, they said that was a little bit of a mistake on their part. They know that they couldn't have it funded. We couldn't have funding ready for the first year anyway, maybe even the second year.
Yeah, I guess maybe they look at, I mean, some counties fully fund these projects, some get federal dollars to assist in a matching, like the bridge inspection itself is a federally, federal dollars go to help fund that report that you're looking at. And that's a state project, every year, or every 2 years, but, yeah, I mean, I guess that would be their role too, is to look at what money you have available and as far as scheduling these repairs, but ultimately, the condition of the bridges will determine when they need fixed.
But it doesn't, there's a prioritization in there, but it doesn't necessarily prioritize it by, it's supposed to a little bit by use and by the community that's serving and what type of traffic it's serving.
Yeah.
But it's not been utilized by the county. The only bridge that's been replaced is bridge number 9, or in the process of being replaced, is bridge number 90 that's on that report. None of the others have been done. The bridges that we're talking about now are because of accidents, and then because we have an accident, we're going to go ahead and upgrade the bridge a little bit.
Yeah.
The other issues are culverts. They're not even on the list.
Well, any culvert, I mean, sometimes that would be culverts under 20-foot span.
Correct.
Okay.
Anything under 20 foot, or it could be a pipe, it could be a box, it could be a
Right.
clear span, but less than 20 feet. But those aren't even listed. We don't have a list of we don't have an inventory of our culverts yet.
For $100,000, you could. I know this.
We're
I mean, just saying, I mean, that's what it would cost. To get a culvert inventory is about $100,000. To get a report that looks like your bridge report for your culverts, that's only down to 4 feet diameter, though. Anything smaller than that, there's too many. You almost can't do them all, but anyway.
No, that's where we're trying to send our highway department. My own personal opinion, we should have one highway department. Right now, we got like 3 highway departments. But that's my own personal opinion. The other 2 commissioners don't agree with that necessarily yet. Working on it. But, right now, we've got 3 highway departments, we have 2 different budgets, we've got 3 different opinions, and we don't have a county engineer, which we're going to propose for this next year in the budgetary process. We don't have a county engineer, we need a superintendent. Our decisions are not jointly made at this point. We try to talk, but it's not jointly made. There's a lot of work to be done on that. And back to the budget, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to actually budget instead of just saying that we spent this much money, we will spend 5% more, or whatever the case may be.
I think that the report, the bridge report, the biannual bridge inspection report, I don't believe that it considers commissioner districts. And it's strictly a county-wide bridge inspection.
But our monies are divided up.
Right, but yeah, but I'm saying, so that's kind of a problem, because some districts might have more bridges than others, but maybe one district needs a replacement. All the money would go to, you know, so it's kind of, when you compartmentalize this, it doesn't work very well, because Cuban Bridge is for the whole county, so he's right on that issue.
Having a plan, I think, will be very beneficial to have them prioritize, like you mentioned, you know, the ones in the most need of the most work, and even though it's compartmentalized right now, that may not be the case once we get that report, you know. I just wanted to make sure you were aware of the fund balance on that. There is enough to cover these 2 requests for this year. They'll just have to work on their budgeting for next year with their income and their needs, but like they said, they're working on their needs.
Are there any other big bridge projects planned? I don't know what the,
No. Well, there's nothing planned right now. But,
well, that you can.
I'm hoping there will be.
Yeah, what do you hope?
But in 22, there's a big one that's coming up that we'll have to fund. That's the one that goes at Hillsdale.
Old 63?
Is that big?
So,
That's the real expensive one, so that's gonna, even if that's an 80-20 match, that's still gonna be more than, I don't know, probably a $200,000 match. That's $1 million bridge there.
the monies are, it's 245,000. It's,
Okay.
You're close. It's somewhere in that range.
I'm just guessing, yeah, I'm just guessing, but.
You're a good guess.
I would say, I agree with Neil that money should be put into one pot and not divided up between districts.
Well, the
Put
Cume
in
Bridge
one
may
pot.
not be divided up. I mean, if you only get $300,000 a year and one bridge, $1 million bridge needs replaced, it's going to wherever that bridge is at, you know, regardless of who's the commissioner in that district. But with only $300,000 a year, you don't have a lot of, you know, you do a bridge project, and then if you have a drunk driver crash and destroy a bridge, cause $100,000 in damage, you may not have the money to pay for it. You may not have it the next year, especially if you get into scheduling bridge replacements. You may not have any Cume Bridge money for a long time.
Well, one thing we want to make sure that we're doing when we set up and prioritize these things is to also start looking at the matching grants that can go with these things. The last bridge that we were doing that was bought last year, that wasn't done. And so the county's paying for the whole thing. So we could probably do 3 more bridges for the cost that we're paying for this bridge. That's the type of planning we're not doing. That's the type of planning we need to do. And regardless of whether the monies are there, that's up to you guys. We were going to plan this out. We're going to give you a true budget of what we see that should be done, and then council will decide whether the funds are available to us, and if we don't have the funding available to us, then we move
All right. Are there any other questions about this particular bridge repair?
we may recoup some money from it. I don't
Right.
know.
What are the other ones for tonight?
The other what?
Or bridge, cumulative bridge?
The other, the request?
Yeah.
The other request is for $141,000. It's the removal of an existing culvert, washout and collapse. They're replacing the culvert on County Road 1150 South.
it closed?
Who's that? That 1150 actually have?
It's that culvert that only had 5-inch rain here recently. Basically,
I think I know where it's
what
at.
happened was, debris came down, either dammed it off, water overflowed the road, took the culvert out. Problem wasn't that we just lost the road base, the culvert was rotten on the bottom. So, they went to put a backfill into it, and it collapsed. So, we got some disparity in prices right now. We have declared it an emergency. The road is fully closed. Working on it today. We've got disparity between bids on that road.
So that road that one is completely closed, and the other one's down to one lane.
Is 1150, is that the Army Pile Road?
Next one south.
Oh, okay.
It goes around the corner. I think
Oh,
as
the
soon
ones
as
go
as
down
soon as
the
you go
corner,
around that
okay.
90-degree corner is where that
Yeah.
culvert's at.
All right.
But we have a number of culverts that are in that same condition. It's just that they're not collapsed yet. They're basically supposed to be pipe arches or something.
I think historically, like, counties have used Cambridge money to fix things like pipe culverts. Now, when we say pipe culverts in this world of construction, anything that is 20 feet in span length, whether it be a bridge, or if you take 3 pipes in a row, and the length of those pipes going down the road spans 20 feet, that's considered a bridge. It's just a technical term. Culvert would be anything less than that, but I've never been really sold on the idea of whether or not cumulative bridge money can actually fix culverts. You know, something less than 20 feet. That's kind of a gray area as far as accounting goes. I mean, I think a lot of counties do it. I'm not saying that it's legal or illegal. I don't know. But so that kind of, so what do you do then? I mean, if you have a 10-foot diameter pipe, where else do you pay for it out of? You know, does highway budget allow for it? Is there any money in highway that can fix culverts, you know, for washouts and things like that? That'll have to be looked at. But so, like, a lot of times all I'm saying is that cumulative bridge money can be, you know, used up by culvert repairs on things that are not bridges, which is what it's intended for. You can go buy a load of pipe off a pipe supplier and use cum bridge money to buy that pipe. It's not going to help you when you got a project coming down the road of a big, large structure you got to replace.
So for future culverts, it might be beneficial to see if there's other sources.
It might be beneficial to look and see if the county has money in highway budget to try to do something with pipes or some, you know, other types of structures besides bridges, culvert replacement, small 12-inch culverts or whatever. Because that stuff will, you know, a load of pipe's $50,000 for a semi-load. So, you know, a couple loads a year, if you're replacing a lot of pipes, can cost you a lot of money. It may not happen.
We also need to address the driveways.
So the homeowners aren't required, that's not a homeowner responsibility for a driveway pipe?
The way we have it right now, I don't necessarily agree with that.
Because some driveway pipes, like if you have a commercial entrance to a big farming operation, that could be a 48-inch pipe, 80 feet long, cost you $15,000 to put it in. You know, should that be on the business or the county? I guess it depends how you look at it.
That's going to be revisited.
Yeah.
Work in progress.
Yeah, there's probably 2 ways to look at that, but kind of a combination will be the choice.
Also, hopefully we work with council on we put this together and we have a good game plan together, sitting down and saying how do we want to approach this thing. So what we've been doing is not necessarily a good way, maybe it's something that we dance with a little bit to make sure that the council maintains these things that maybe we should.
They do have ditching, under contract service ditching. That's about the
Yeah,
only thing
ditching
they
can
have.
pay for, I mean, you know,
But they
there's a
only have-
culvert, but I don't know.
There's not very much in there.
We do have a ordinance about a new home going in, that they have to contact the highway superintendent of that district to talk to them, so they doesn't want to get all the gravel full of the ditch, so they keep the ditch flowing. The highway foreman tells them what size of pipe they need, it's their responsibility to pick the pipe.
I think what happens is after about 40 years, somebody's driveway pipe's rusted out, they're saying, hey, I don't have $2,000 to go, I don't have any way to haul a pipe. So the county gets to, if the county wants the ditch to work, then somebody's gonna have to fix it. That's probably where it starts.
Well, with the new bill, we do have something in place.
So the material for bridge repair is $104,000. Any other further comments, questions on that regarding that particular bridge?
Is that an engineer estimate or is that a quote?
It's actually an engineer's estimate. I have a large disparity between two estimates. I didn't have them when I submitted the proposal, and it looks like it's two-thirds. With that said, we have another blowout on another culvert on 50 South that we will off the pipe arch, concrete pipe arch that's been undermined. That money will probably still be needed, and it may cover that pipe arch, but it may not well pay what they actually put concrete structure to that. Those things may cover that cost. But I think it will be less, about two-thirds of that for actually taking this out.
You'll be at 2/3 of the 104?
I think it will be, still, I've got disparity between the two quotes. That disparity out. It's a
Well,
significant
less is better than more.
disparity.
Less is better than more.
Yeah.
So.
Timber prices aren't exactly great, so that's why the timber bridges are not so great to hit.
I like the timber bridges, actually.
They're nice, I mean, they're okay, there's only one place you can get the wood from in the country, but I mean, other than that, they're okay. I would say the best kind of bridge is a bridge that doesn't have any pilings under it, it's clear open, so keep that in mind.
I've been trying to get rid of that one bridge, and really, the state takes back,
As long as it's not a state road, they'll never take that back.
well, I'm still working. on it.
Reconstructing.
They're giving them away still, I mean,
I'll give it away too.
bridge to nowhere. Just take it. Well, so I guess, I mean, we can approve all of this, but it takes the count down to 0 for the most part. I mean, as far as I can tell.
They'll have an additional $125,000 in revenue this year going back into the account. They just won't have it yet because it comes in installments. But I mean, yeah, they're pretty much deleting their Cume Bridge fund.
I mean, without looking at the bridge report to know what consultant wanted to do in 2022, well, I guess you're saying that they're far behind anyway. I mean, there might be things that they were supposed to do in 2015, I don't know.
We have more bridges that are 0. There should be less.
Well, there's-
years ago.
You could not spend the money, but you're still gonna have these problems out there.
Where we're at now, we're only into July. These are all repairs. These aren't, some of the bridge number 9, the rest of these are just repairs. Not even things that are planned.
How many bridges are there in the county? Any roughly 150 or 100?
About 90. I just redid all that on the GIS, it's like 94. And I found 4 bridges that's on the list where you don't have GIS map. Some have been phased out, they were reassigned numbers. State number, you remember, the county asset number, that's about 3 names that's straightened out. I think I got all the bridges on the GIS map. I think it's 94.
I mean, I guess at some point, you'll just have to face the facts that if there's not enough money in Cume Bridge next year, the year after, there may have to be a bridge closed indefinitely until the funds are there to fix it. I mean, it's just a fact. I mean, yeah, I mean,
We work in, there's only so much money available, so
Well, that's why,
We don't.
that's why there's $1 million or whatever in Cume Bridge, because for 3 or 4 years, it hasn't been spent on anything. I mean, I'm guessing. And, you know, a lot of times people look at budgets like Cume Bridge and think, oh, $1 million. Well, on a bridge,
Burn
it's
that
$1 million
up.
a piece. So, you know, that's the problem, is that it's,
That's the only way in and out of that housing complex out back there, is that road.
It was rated at number 2 or 3, priority.
and that's the one where they bought the bridge and RJ was talking about, is that right? So that one's gonna get fixed. What are they gonna do when they work on it?
We're gonna have to
Typical.
come on with it.
It's gonna be, it's construction should have done.
So what are the other options on this particular bridge? Leave it one lane for a period of time? I mean, is that an option, or?
Definite.
On Spring Street, yes.
No, he means the
No.
timber bridge.
The timber bridge.
Hog slab.
No, we're gonna close the road. We could let it open on one lane, but it would cost us more, and we have a way out in both directions. It's just not convenient for the rock trucks and hog slabs. So, be a 2-week period in which they won't be able to use that. They'll have to go out and go out.
Actually, a one-lane bridge is a bad idea.
Right.
Because if you don't have a flagman out there or traffic control at all times, you're inviting an accident and then liability. They'll say, well, how was I supposed to know I wasn't supposed to go when he was coming at me? You know, I'm in my lane, and those kind of arguments pop up.
You know, they have signs up that you're right, it does, once we can close the bridge, that's something.
Well, I mean, you could sign it all you want, but when it comes down to it, without traffic control, physical, you know, whether that be yellow, green, and red lights and stuff like that, it's uncontrolled.
We considered it, we went to Park East and asked for their opinion of it. Once we'll take it. That's another matter though, talking about signage, is we were losing a lot of signs.
Still, you can't put an aluminum sign out there,
Well,
but you have to.
we're literally losing the sign a week, if not more than that right now. There's 2 or 3 signs still in that time. I think we lose one every week, but the average is like 1 week right now. We've worked with the sheriff's department, yeah, that we talked about expense, that adds up to.
I think we almost have to approve this one.
And the problem is also, with those signs gone, we have one stop sign gone, and the sheriff observed the person just moved through there, they thought they didn't have to stop. Of course, it wasn't an issue,
I think we're kind of allowing a damaged bridge to be used on a daily basis with poor traffic control, and that's on us. We either got to close it or approve this.
So what's your preference? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve this repair, $104,000, up to $104,400. Is that right? $104,000
104.
and $400
We'll see you for
for.
It's 104,000.
I'm sorry, I was looking at, down here it says 104,400, but that's the request, but then on the cover page it says 104.
Yeah, we advertised
Either one.
104.
Okay. All right, hopefully the repair comes in cheaper.
we're good on that. We got all that down.
So you may not have to spend 104 then?
That was well, the 141, did you say the 141,000?
The 104,000 is the one we're on right now.
104,000 is. I'm sorry, I thought you were on.
We stuck the bid with it on the backside of it.
Okay.
We got a bid.
Well, there's a lot of traffic on that road, so.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. I have a motion for Mr. Costello, a second by Mr. Somerville to approve the 104,000 from Cume Bridge for material for repair. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The appropriation is approved. All right, so the next appropriation after that is the second bridge for the bridge repair for the 141,000. And that's the one on the it'll come in at 2/3 of that amount. But, it's on 1150 South. And that one is completely closed right now.
How do those folks get out, go over to 50 East? I guess that's most of the people then, right?
Probably just
Except for
two houses.
Got one house on this side of the bridge, it's like
Hurlow's kind of on 1100.
So how many residents is that?
Two.
I don't know.
Maybe 4 or 5 houses at the most. Those houses are kind of way back off the road all through there, you can't really tell.
Fairly new house, except for one, two down the valley.
Who's gonna be doing this work? You already got a company in to do this work, or not yet?
Trying to do the construction, we've got 2 quotes on the culvert itself. Silicon around the E3 bridge.
They're contractors. Well, I know who they are, but I mean, they hire a subcontractor to work for them.
We'll hire a contractor. Either we'll have them, depending on the cost, we'll either have them buy the material, or we'll buy the material and have the contractor.
Do you guys get annual bid prices on the culverts, like from E3 or?
They did, I don't think they get more of these size culverts, I think it's all the small ones. This is a pretty size culvert, has to be about 12 by 7.5 foot, my large.
So it's not like a multi-plate pipe, it's one pipe, just,
We have the alternative on this one, to go to structural plate or to single. This is the largest single pipe that they'll make. We can do that, that's the disparity we have. It looks like we'll be able to do that.
okay.
So we get one pipe in at 60 foot versus a structural plate. Mark will get,
This ain't
the
helping.
cost of the versus that.
Since it's actually gone, you know,
Pipe, single pipe. Until we make that decision, though, we've not got a contract.
You guys don't have the equipment for this, right? Like, you need or 2 excavators or something. Okay.
Since this was an act of God, so to speak, a rain type deal, washout, can Marco here do us any good on this?
If there's an emergency declared by the governor, we might be able to. We're keeping our records accordingly, so that, and Mark's accumulating that data. So they work with him, but unless the governor declares an emergency, there's an indication he might do it on the south counties. Not sure, it doesn't sound like it's going to extend up as far as.
Thank you.
So we are preparing for it if we get that declaration.
So if there's an emergency for these homes that are back in that subdivision or whatever it is, there is other access, but is there fire hydrants back there? Or?
No
Hydrants.
fire.
There's no regional water line. But the thing is that the fire departments are notified, the ambulance is notified, sheriff is notified. Depending on when we get down to the schools, we'll be notified as well as to buses, all the routes. Those are roads we primarily use for farming, training trucks, whatever, access points. But it is a road, it's a matter of whether, right now it's closed, it'll remain closed until it's repaired.
How long is the pipe?
60 feet. 60-foot 2 gauge, approximately 12-foot span by 7-foot 10-inch drawings.
And this price is for the pipe plus labor, equipment,
That price there
material?
was for the structural plate, I didn't have the price in before it's submitted for the appropriation. Submittal for the single pipe without structural, non-structural plated pipe was without. Anyway, it wasn't half, but it was about 2/3 of the price that we got on the structural plate. Not
141, is that installed
Yes.
by a contractor?
Yes, but it'd be something less than, I think it's gonna be more like 80,000 probably when we set it up.
Including the pipe? That's, yeah, that sounds more like it. And if that 141,000 is not completely expended, then if it's 80 or something, then that just reverts back to Cube Bridge.
Yes.
We have another one that's not sensitive to investigation right now, that, getting south of it was red, anyway, foundation's gone on it, and it's undermined the foundation, and developed a hole in the road, and the road is now closed also. 775 south. We have another one, getting south.
So which ones are more important?
They're popping up as we take care of them right now. Anyway, and it's heavy trucking too. Anyway, Clark Dees believes that they can put a secondary wall. That bridge has had 3 alterations to it already over the years. You can see what the original bridge was, I got wiped out, flood, rainstorm, whatever. It's had a structure put onto it that's about 10 foot tall now, and another structure put onto it, a third edition with a white. So you can see 3 different additions on this one color. It's a not the problem is the original bridge has wore, the rebar's gone in it, it's gone, basically it's taking out the middle of the foundation on one side, it's doing the same thing on the other side. So if you develop the backfill behind the road, or behind the bridge, to keep the road down, that's what we're doing. Park East believes that they can go in and put a secondary wall on the inside, and if you have to actually do the same thing on the other side, just has to come together. So on both sides, put a wall, pour concrete into it, anchor it into the existing structure. They'll have to make sure we still have to probably go, not so hot about the Band-Aid, but we're looking at maybe $20,000 gifts as opposed to $100,000 gifts. So that's where that one's headed.
Well, I think all the requests, I mean, my opinion is all the requests, I mean, you really are, spending a lot and taking a lot from it, but it's not for, it's for good cause. I mean, these things are, you could never have enough of this money to fix all these, you never will. So if we do not approve it, then what are we saving up for? I mean, what do we know that needs fixing? That's the thing. I mean, they know, they're supposed to know what they need to fix, and if the money's there and it needs fixed, then we approve it. If they run out, they run out. I mean, it's just the way it'll be.
Well, if we lived there, we wouldn't want our road closed. That's
No,
the key
but I
right
mean,
there.
If we don't approve it, say, well, let's just leave Cume Bridge at $1 million, and don't fix any of the bridges, well, then we're not using the money for what it's really for. But it's not a, it seems like an easy decision, but there's also the future, which is important. We've spent every penny of it this year, and you will, with the exception of $125,000 or something later.
Well, both of these future roads are closed currently.
They're both closed.
Okay, so one bridge serves 6 residents or homes and is not traveled
It's
that
not a
much.
bridge, it's a culvert.
Culvert.
Just a-
It's not traveled that much.
Okay, and then the other one that you're talking about that we really don't have a lot of information on, that's traveled with a lot more traffic and serves more homes.
It serves homes and also serves 2 businesses on both sides.
And then is there access to this other culvert? I mean, from another location?
You have to go around to get around. It's not
Okay.
access that it's easy.
Personally, I think we have to make a choice.
But I mean,
Fix
what are you gonna say for
one.
100, so say you don't appropriate 141 for the pipe.
I think you do, but let's do the one,
We
I
are
don't know.
technically, it would be moving this money into their Hume Bridge, like basically into their budget to spend it.
Yeah.
So if that other bridge came up in the meantime, they would have the ability to use it for that instead of this repair. I mean, the ultimate decision of which bridge they repair would come down to them.
Yeah.
But they would have the money available to do it. We were just moving that money into their budget account so they
I
can
agree with
spend
that.
it.
There's enough money there to do this.
There's enough money to do both bridges. I think the concern is over the anticipated repairs on the additional ones too. But ultimately, that'll come down to the commissioners and the highway department of which is gonna have to be done first. They're just asking us to move the funds available to be spent.
I think that's what we should do. I mean, it's their job to control the buildings and the people and the bridges out there and the roads. I mean, that's not our job. Our job is to put the money there and let them decide.
I mean, we just got, I just want everybody to know that the money's definitely needed. These are urgent repairs, these are critical infrastructure. And there's not enough to do them all. So we will use most, if not all, of this money. And there will be more projects down the road. And when there's not the money there, you can't really blame either commissioners or council, or even taxpayers. There's just not enough there. And we're gonna run out of, Cume Bridge will run out.
Can't we move money from?
We got more repairs than money.
Well, that's where he was
General?
talking about some of these culverts, maybe instead of taking the
Yeah.
Hume Bridge money, trying to find other sources to fix those smaller projects
And
instead of taking it.
that's
out of this
that's a
account.
difficult, that sounds easy, but it may be a lot more difficult to find money to fix water drainage issues with highway money, because there really isn't anything in the highway budget that's called water drainage. It's all called paving or
Well, and unfortunately,
HMA surface.
that budget also got hit with lower taxes from 2020.
Right.
So he kind of got hit, which, yeah.
That's kind of been a dilemma of a lot of counties, is that you have road work money, you have bridge money, but what about all the ditches and culverts that support all that? Well, there isn't anything for that. You take it from Hume Bridge, or you take it,
Right. I don't know how many people's been south of Universal seen that bridge, but it creates a lot of liability down there if we leave that open. And we need it that fixed as fast as we can. There's a lot of travel on that road.
the timber products will take 8 weeks to receive. If you don't, those will take a long time to get. A lot of times on custom timber bridges, I just know this from experience, when you order that stuff, they gotta go cut the lumber somewhere. I mean, it's just, they don't have these beams laying around, so that's gonna be a while.
We have a schedule. On top of it.
Sure.
It's just a matter of-
So we can move this money into their Hume Bridge. I mean, it is in their fund, it's just not in their balance to spend it. So
Okay.
we can tentatively approve it for this washout and, if something came up. Huh? Well, if you only spend
Good luck.
2/3 of it, then they have some left.
It's a small pot.
Just maybe put rain.
Yeah, no more rain. The farmers may not like that at all.
That Hillsdale Bridge would be a good one to close. Neighbors might even appreciate it.
I don't know. I wanna ask them first.
Yeah, I would, I'd ask them.
All right, what's your preference on the 141?
So what do we do?
We're on the
We're gonna
141,000.
move that.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking, if you want to
I
move
think
that.
we should move that.
Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Dreer, second by Mr. Bush, to allow the 141,000 for the replacement of culvert on County Road 1150 South. It is moving into Cume Bridge. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Appropriations approved. Alright, our next additional appropriation is from the surveyor's office. He is asking for a total of $1,666.65. It is for 3 rolls of stamps, operating supplies, dues and subscriptions. These are just the increased costs that were not, that are above the budgeted amount from budget time. And Mr. Mack is here for questions. I looked looked over the budget for the surveyor, and it was a pretty lean budget. I mean, most items only had a couple $100, so
Yeah.
I'm not extremely surprised where he's already gone over. I'm sure he can detail any questions you have. I know you've sent updates and stuff to the commissioners of what you've been doing, so if anyone has questions for him.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Weir, a second by Mr. Brown to approve the $1,666.65. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Appropriations approved.
3 rows of staples.
All right, and the next is also the surveyors. He's asking for an additional of $1,500 for travel and mileage. It's the cost increases of the duties he's been performing. Is this the mileage reimbursement for traveling to different places to check out things?
This is just a reimbursement, I mean, you already paid this, is that correct?
I've got a couple hundred more like that, that get them.
I assume you've documented all those miles, all that, what you've done, where you've gone, and he's looked at it, okay. All right.
Is that a motion?
Huh?
Is that a motion?
I said all right.
Oh.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Weir, a second by Mr. Bush to approve the $1,500 for travel and mileage. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed
Aye.
say no. Appropriations approved.
And I do apologize that these have been signed by the commissioners, but this is the first time I've seen them for a while, so.
Can I switch the next one in your packet? We do the health department first. It'll be a shorter one. It's right after this one. We'll do the health department first. Sorry, I'm changing the order on you. For the next appropriation, it'll be for the Vermillion County Health Department. It's their COVID-19 vaccine grant. It is for $32,028.63. She is appropriating it out to the different accounts to where it is to be used. This is additional funds from the state for the COVID-19 vaccine grant. Wendy is here if you have questions for her. Is this an extension of the current grant we have?
Yeah, they, the vaccine, division of department, so much to every county for population,
What's the expected date for this to run through, do you know?
so, they're talking through this amount of 32 till June of next year.
Okay.
I don't know if it's going to be that long, but that's what they're saying.
Okay.
Do we have to spend this money?
You guys spend it as you need it, right? I mean,
Yes.
it's not a guarantee, like,
It's reimbursable, so what we spend out when we.
I'm just saying it's time to shut down the county health department's vaccine program. I mean,
For COVID-19.
for COVID-19. Because anybody wants a shot can just walk into a pharmacy, and I don't think there's too many left that want shots at this point.
I mean, we are mandated by the state to keep it open. So we have to keep the shops available.
this 32,000 is from the state. This is not county money.
Well,
It is, I mean, it's
How many we doing?
technically paid in taxes, but it's not
Question about it.
from the county.
How many are we doing a week right now?
It just depends, maybe 15, 20, sometimes more.
Okay.
It just depends on, and they're not all from our county either, so
Mhm.
we are cutting the hours back.
Mm-hmm.
We're taking it back to 15 or 13 hours a week. So we're trying to cut back, the state has required us to do that.
So this is something basically some of Joe Biden's doings, handouts.
I have no idea where it originated.
Is that right?
I mean, I don't know who at the state level
I mean,
sponsored the program.
We have a state health commissioner, and we're welcome to contact Dr. Box. We are required to leave it. But we are trying to cut the hours.
Do they give you a minimum you have to be open?
Yeah, we were told today we have to keep it open 15 hours.
Okay.
But we already set our hours at 13.
Yeah.
So they're allowing us to do 13.
Yeah, you just have to do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
Is that 13 hours a week?
Yep.
And that a week is 5 days or 7 days?
We're doing
3 days a week.
Tuesday and that starts in August, so we're doing Tuesdays and Thursdays, 1 to 6, because they're asking us to keep hours for people that need to be there after hours for work purposes, and then Saturday. We're cutting back from 10 to 3 to 12 to 3. Plus, we also, we're not sure how many we will have at school. We just have 2 vaccine clinics at school. And I talked to Mr. Chapman today, and he is also wanting vaccine clinics in the schools when they cut the age limit back. So I have to ask that.
Excuse me.
Yes, I
A
need a
motion. If we don't use it, we lose it, so.
I don't think the health department's not to see, it's a grant,
That's,
they're mandated to do this, it's,
I got a motion, I need a second before.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
yeah, I'll second
Okay, now you can talk. You have further
it.
discussion?
Now I can talk.
Yep.
I don't see how, for us, I think the argument as to whether or not this grant money should be there or not is on a different level at a different location. I do see your point, absolutely. But I think as far as they're concerned and we're concerned, this is more of a, kind of a, just an approval of something that they have to do. Like I say, the argument of whether it should be there or not is not ours here at this time, in my opinion.
I have a motion by Mr. Bush, a second for Mr. Costello to allow the appropriation of $32,028.63 for the COVID-19 vaccine grant. Is there any further discussion? All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no.
No.
The appropriation's approved. Thanks, Wendy, for being here tonight. Alright, now we'll go back to the other one, sorry. Alright, the next appropriation is for $25,000. The commissioners are asking to have a Baker Tilly perform an ambulance audit. The audit is to provide the commissioners and council sufficient information to assess the services that are being provided for the cost the county incurs. Commissioner Luther has given us the engagement review services letter. I did look up the estimated, or not the estimated, but the contractual amount that we are, that will be asked in the budget hearing for the 2022 service, with 3 paramedics, it will be $786,987. So that is the current contract price we are looking at for the next year. Do you want to talk a little bit about what this should accomplish?
Try. Where we're at is that come September, the contract's already been signed and approved. And the question was is whether we continue with the third ambulance inside the county or not. That was supposed to be, I think, the crux of it. I'm afraid the way the contract's written is that there's an appropriation to say what happens if we don't fund it. I guess the contract just goes away, period. I don't think there's a fallback to it. So either we fund it, or let it fall and renegotiate something. That's the way I kind of read it. Am I correct or?
When we approved the budget last year for 2021, we had agreed as a council to try it for a one-year term. And we asked the commissioners to do we basically told the commissioners we'll try it for a year. Their next contract was a 3-year contract, and it was stated, we can only guarantee the funding for a year, based on budgets. So that was given to the commissioners. They went ahead and proceeded with the 3-year amounts. So yes, I mean, it is based on budgets every year of what
So
the amount
we
gets
don't,
funded.
basically what it's coming down to is that the council's going to have a decision to fund this contract or not. If it doesn't get funded, then then we have no contract. At that point, I guess we negotiate one or just don't have payments. Going forward though, it was a hard way of, no one could really decide whether we were getting a proper service, whether the money we're spending, whether it was a good dollar amount, whatever company didn't know. So I went around to 3 different firms to ask them if they could do an audit for us to determine whether we're paying the right amount for this ambulance service, or for the services that we're receiving. And so part of this audit is to decide, one, is do we need 1 ambulance, 2 ambulances, or 3 ambulances, for the amount of people that we have, that's what we're spending. The second part is that what should we be spending on this, and what is the per capita for counties our size or demographics, if you will. It's a little bit more complicated than just saying that we have X amount of people, 15,000, 17,000 people. It also gets back to age, and it gets back to response times, it gets back to type of service that we want to receive. In order to do that, I asked Baker Tilly, the other two, one of them couldn't do it because of the time frame I had, blowing that time frame away. I was hoping to have it done earlier than now. They may have still been able to do it if I didn't go back. Baker Tilly did come back and said they can do it. We're not on their time frame either. They have a decision by September, whatever it is. There's certain questions and certain reports that we'll be asking for inside the audit. I think I provided that to the council. You guys have got questions. We'll be asking what we expect as far as demonstration back as to what we're paying for and the cost of that and how we're going to proceed. If we don't do the audit, I think it's just another one of those things that we will not really understand what we're paying for and whether it's a good price or a different price or a bad price. So that's the reason we'll require the audit. It's a $25,000 line item. It's going to take us right up into September. We'll actually do that. So that's the best way I can come up with to be able to make a recommendation, I guess, to council that the monies that we're spending is a fair agreement with the agreement to participate in this audit.
I was thinking that when we entered into those contracts, the commissioners entered into the contracts, you entered into like an extended deal on the contract, wasn't it? But we agreed to pay that extended part, but as far as the other contract for 1 year, that was something we decided on, but that ambulance, they broke the contract, because that ambulance was supposed to go to the middle of this county someplace, and it remains in Clinton.
Well, I'm not sure they broke it or we broke it.
Maybe you broke because you didn't tell them where to put it, I don't know, but the whole discussion all along with the commissioners and the council, and they were well aware that that ambulance was supposed to go to the middle of this county,
I agree.
and they never adhered to that, they left it down there.
Well, I agree to a point there, except I don't think we told them, I think the way it was left was that the commissioners would tell them where to station that ambulance.
And I thought on several occasions it was brought up that it would go to the middle of the county, because they had discussed at one time putting it to Rise, and they discussed about putting it in Cayuga. I firmly thought it should have went farther north, because the people up Perrysville on up have no coverage, and they pay taxes as well as everybody else. But it still should have went someplace in the middle of this county, because they were told many a times that we would fund that, and they said they'd put it in the middle of the county.
Well, I don't know that the commissioners have done that. I don't think they said you will put it at this intersection or you'll put it at this location. I don't think,
The last that I had heard was that it wasn't actually stated in the contract, but it was placed where the need was. So if the ambulance went out of Cayuga, then one of the remaining ambulances would move up that way. So if it got called out, there would be a backup in route, at least towards that direction, was my understanding. I don't think it was specifically stated that it had to be there all the time, because I think at one point in time they said the majority of the calls were south of 36, so at times you do need the two.
But there's been times on it.
But I don't think it was specifically stated and written out that it had to be at a location, but that was the intended.
I don't think Ileana is opposed to putting one there. It's just that we've not dictated or we've not told them where to put that ambulance. There's other issues that go along with it as far as, there's housing, there's fuel, there's supplies, there's weather conditions. It's a 24, I don't know what they're on, they're on a 24 or 48 hour type program.
They could eliminate all those costs if we would just build our own facility and say, whoever the ambulance company is, this is where you're going.
I think that's a reasonable consideration. I don't know why we're paying somebody to find a place, especially if it's only a year, if they don't know they're even going to have a contract the next year.
Or paying to get rich.
Or that. But the thing is that we're asking a private entity, or any entity for that matter, to provide housing for a facility and finance that for a year's contract, maybe a 3-year contract, but it's not, if you don't fund it, it's only a year contract. So it's hard to do that for that amount of money to be put out by an individual.
But when we look at housing, those ambulances are sitting outside now. They were housed on top of Crumpton Hill in a building. Now they're just outside, but we're still paying the same amount of money. So they're not paying the housing, that should have been taken out of it.
Well, from what I understand, I don't know if this is more of a commissioner's thing.
Right, I understand.
We'll get to it, and some of your points are well taken. But the thing is that right now we need to decide whether we have the funding or whether we're going to provide the funding to determine what the parameters are to be able to say that we're going to spend this amount of money. It's a significant amount of money. And I can't tell you today, I've been in the fire service for 25 years. I've seen different ways of doing things. But I can't tell you what that cost is. I couldn't stand here.
I think it's
can't find
important
somebody that can do that.
It's very important we find that out, because this county, a lot of the people are very distraught in this county. Money's an issue. Some of them cannot afford that deal. You know, it'd be one thing. I mean, I know I had to use it one time, and they gave me a $1,600 bill. And I called them, and they said, well, you're not in the network. How could I not be in their network when there's providing services here in my county?
Well, I think
So they ended up
that's-
lowering that down to like 200 something. I paid it, but
Well, and where I kind of personally would like to go with this is that I'd like to renegotiate the contract to some point.
I agree with you.
It's a 6-page contract, of which a lot of it is fluff. It doesn't get down to the bare bones of really what we're trying to do. And it's not to me, it's not a very good contract.
It seemed like it was very much one-sided before. You know, the person said what they were gonna do and the cost that they wanted. Yeah, okay, you can't get competitive unless we have someone bid against them or whatever, whoever the ambulance company is, or you people sit down and negotiate that and try to get it at a reasonable cost.
Well, this is not a service that you bid. This is a professional service, and if we want to look at different places, we do it just like what we do with our engineering contract. We go out, we'll invite people to come in and make a proposal to us, regardless of their cost, but who do we see that we would want to work with? And who makes the best proposal to us? Then we'll sit down, and then we could sit down with them and go through what those costs and negotiate those costs. And if we can't come to an agreement at the end, we go to number 2, if there is a number 2. To number 3.
I probably used the wrong terminology. I always said bid. Proposals are better because you don't have to accept that person if you don't want. You can have 4 or 5 there, but we need to get competitive with it.
Yeah, but if you ask Britt Luther Ambulance Service, I'll give you a great deal. You won't get very good service.
I'm not
but
gonna
you'll
call
get a great
you.
deal. But it's something.
Do you feel the study is needed in order to put that out for proposal? Like, will this study actually give you information. I mean, when you do a proposal, would the commissioners say, here's the specs we need, or are you asking the ambulance service to say, here's what we need?
We're not asking the ambulance service, we're asking Baker Tilly to come up with what they're providing
So
compared
that's-
to what our county would require.
This study would basically give us an outline of what we should propose for services.
You know, in all fairness, the county signed a contract with this service for 3 years or X amount of years. I don't exactly know if it was 3 years or longer, but
It's 3.
we signed a contract in good faith with them. And they provided a service, and I've not heard anything really bad about their service. In fact, I've not heard anything bad about the service, about the paramedics or how they were conducting themselves, or about the response times or anything. It may exist, I've not heard any of that. It's a matter of whether we're gonna honor our contract or not. Again, I don't think it's a very good contract, and whether we should go out for additional proposals. If you don't fund it, then that's where we have to go if we still want an ambulance service. If you're going to fund it, it's a matter of whether we honor our contracts. And I
So-
just don't like us signing good, bad, or different. I'd like to maybe renegotiate the contract and make it clearer as to what we expect and what they expect.
What's the legality part? I mean, we've already got a contract for, what, was 3 years, and they went to 5, was it, 2 more years?
It's a 3-year contract, that was signed after we budgeted for the year. So we had, with the understanding of a 1 year and then a 3-year was signed.
So if you sit down to renegotiate it, is there any legality there? I mean, he's
I'm
legal
sure
for.
there is.
I mean, he could come back and sue us if we didn't honor it, right?
The way I understand it was that the way that it was left with them is that it is subject to funding. We have a contract subject to funding. If you don't fund it, we don't have a contract. If we don't have a contract, we don't have an ambulance service. So either you fund it or you don't fund it. It's not really in the commissioner's hands at this point. The only thing that's in our hands is to try to justify the cost. Somebody signed the contract, whether it was commissioners or council or together.
Oh, we didn't sign.
It got signed, good, bad, or indifferent. So I would think that they would be open to a negotiation of a new contract. It explains things a little bit better as we're going down. I agree also that going into this next year to 2 years, that the county owns the facilities and this would go a long way to saying where we need those facilities. Again, it's not just a matter of how many people you got there, it's also a matter of demographics, it's a matter of response times, it's a matter of utilities, et cetera, et cetera. There's a number of things that go into it. I can't say we've done that.
So the one you just signed, is it the same one? The same verbiage, the same contract? Is it a 1 year or 3-year additional?
It's a 3-year contract that was signed.
No, I'm talking about the one you said that we need to consider now. It's due now.
That is a continuation. Either the council funds it or they don't fund it. And that contract is basically subject to funding.
Right, for how many years though? What,
3 years.
Another 3?
The reason we did a year though was because we put the third paramedic truck on. We wanted to make sure we were paying for services we were gonna get for that third truck. And we were gonna evaluate it back before budget time to see if we still needed the third truck or if it was, we were not wasting money, but
Right.
spending money we really didn't need to. Yes, that's the only reason we stuck with the year, if I'm not mistaken.
It was.
And then the commissioner signed a 3-year agreement.
Yeah, but the thing is that it doesn't say what we do if you don't agree to fund 3 ambulances. It doesn't say anything about that, I don't think.
Well, then
I
it
don't read
needs rewritten.
Yeah.
It's the same contract that they've used here for 25 years. I've seen it. It's been through the mill. It's been reprinted. Names have been changed. It's the same one. For 14 years, that contract was renewed without bidding it. People will argue with me on that, but I've got the facts in hand about it, the proof. I mean, it needs redone. You're absolutely
Would
right.
this study allow us to rewrite that contract to a more appropriate level, do you feel like?
I think it gives us the basis for that. It gives us the basis for cost. It gives us the basis whether we need 1 ambulance, 2 ambulances, 3 ambulances, or more. It gives us the basis in which to do a proper assessment. If we went out and asked for proposals or bids or whatever you want to call it, we would have to write up all this and we don't have that basis to do that.
You mentioned
Um,
geographical location. Is that something they're also looking into, of like the area of calls and the most areas of concern then, also in the study? Are they going into the call volume?
That's one of the things that I've asked them to do. Is, we can add to this or subtract from it if we don't think there's that information is useful.
How does Baker Tilly account for the EMS portion of the whole thing? You know, we're looking at a medical service. It's an emergency-based service, and they have ways or people that work for them that are experts at, you know, with knowledge of, you know, things like the trucks. If it's more than 4 minutes away, you could lose someone's life with CPR, things like that. Do they know these things?
That was one of the considerations when I was talking to them about how they would go about, and they have a special group that just does this. When I went to Baker Tilly initially, they didn't think that they could do this type of work.
Okay.
Um,
So it's not
they
just
said
number
this-
crunching, they're gonna look at the medical side of it, because it is multifaceted. You know, ambulance contract is very complex. That's why we run into these problems. We don't know what we're talking about, and somebody else does, you know, because there's so many different sides to it. That's what I'm wondering, if Baker Tilly can attack this from all different sides to know.
Well, and it gets even further back. You mentioned insurance getting the bill. The one complaint I did get was that it was a network issue. Whoever was actually a county employee was not in the network. Well, if you go to most ambulance services, they don't go to all the different insurance companies, but we don't have all those different insurance companies anymore. We only have a few in this county. And why are we not in that network? So those are things that are just not addressed in our contracts. And it is a pain. I mean, $1,600 is a sizable amount for most people anyway. I wouldn't want to spend that.
You have the current copy of the contract, or the current contract. Britton, do you have a copy?
I don't have it with me.
No,
but
but do you have a
yeah,
copy of
I
the
do.
current contract?
I have an electronic copy of it.
Could you email it?
Oh, well, yeah.
Well, I'm just, because at one point it was stated they were supposed to have a second ambulance at Cayuga if it was dispatched out within 12 minutes. And I want to see if that's still on the contract.
The contract said once a primary ambulance, a secondary would be included, and so it was understood that each location had a primary. However, once it was interpreted as the primary is Clinton only. That's why there wasn't a secondary coming to Cayuga.
They have a,
So if there's an accident at 74 and 63, somebody has a heart attack in Cayuga, we have to wait.
And that's why we added the third paramedic, is so if the Cayuga one was being dispatched out, the additional one in Clinton would move farther north in case a second call came out. So that way Clinton was still covered and there was an additional there. That's why we added the third ambulance, to see how that worked out for the year.
they have a mechanism, and I don't pretend to understand it totally, but they have a mechanism which they do move the ambulances around depending on what ambulance is tied up and how long they've been tied up, so they start things in motion. It's
A
not-
lot of what the ambulance does is based on kind of like what's going on the ground. If you have an accident like you spoke of, it could take all three plus a Park County ambulance, and we're uncovered. I mean, it happens. It's unfortunate sometimes that has happened. And you've had to wait on ambulance from some other county, and, you know, it's serious, but there are unfortunate incidences that no matter the best laid out ambulance plan blows up at a certain type of call. But in general, you know, her point's well taken about, you know, on a routine call, who moves where and does what. I think the contract is unclear at best on a lot of those types of things. It's difficult to understand. I think you interpret it, we interpret it, the ambulance company interprets it 3 different ways. It shouldn't be like that. The contract should be stone cold, easy to understand and clear. So that's probably something that's gonna have to be addressed.
Well, I think so. Regardless of whether we fund it, or council funds it, county funds it or not, I really think the contract ought to be rewritten, even if it's the same dollar amount. Anyway.
And if you
the
want-
council- I think the council wanted to know whether we're getting the services that we should be expecting, the money we're spending, and this is about the only way I can come up with to be able to tell you
That's the only thing that's
the
changed.
degree of certainty of what that might be. So it's a matter of, we want to spend money that we go out for proposals again. And I don't know who will get to come in and actually make a proposal, but it would be based on those three different, I don't know that we would be able to lay out the criteria without going through something like
I
this.
think, and another thing too, real quick, I don't know, I've been talking a lot tonight, sorry, but I think one of the things is that if in the future, and I brought this up a long time ago, back in 2017, about buildings, you know, the county's buying buildings no matter what. I believe that there's a few of the old ambulance, you know, the ambulance stations that used to be, you know, there's one across from IGA, you know, I think ultimately the county paid for those buildings, you know, in one form or another.
Several times.
Okay, so ultimately the county's buying buildings somewhere, and at the end of the day, we just don't own them, they go away. So I think that in the future, if you look at proposals from other companies, you may find that maybe, and this is a guess, but maybe other ambulance companies might be more interested in providing manpower and equipment and not have to buy real estate. Because the real estate thing is say, oh, I'll bid it, but I have to buy $1 million real estate in 2 different locations to do this properly. I don't want anything to do with it.
Well, and with Neil saying that, I know you mentioned it before in conversations, and I know we've talked about it before, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea, because then the county can also control the location of where these ambulances are being dispatched from.
There's no question at that point.
That's a good idea.
You know,
And public safety money was what we talked about, maybe providing you're looking at $250,000 a building.
Yeah.
That's what it would cost to build a reasonable 2-bay ambulance station with sleeping quarters, men's, women's bathrooms, recreation rooms, etc. You know, I don't mean to interrupt, but I mean, that's kind of what we're looking at. It's over a $500,000 investment in 2 buildings, you know.
Right. And that's something that we, you know, if we change contracts in the future, that is something that needs to be looked at. But, so as far as the study goes, your anticipation of this study is to give you a guideline for what needs to be in a contract and what doesn't need to be in a contract, and if things are working or not working correctly.
And we're funding appropriately.
And being funded appropriately.
Okay.
But it's a good study.
And you could probably add this bit about housing, you know, buildings.
That's already in the works.
Okay.
And the background right now.
Okay.
Ileana's already been notified that we'll probably be moving that direction.
Okay.
It's not given yet that they're not going to be buying new buildings, but we're adding on anything at this point.
So the
Given
commissioners
when
have started that discussion then?
I've entered into the discussion.
I think
It's a
that
discussion right now.
the
It's not-
discussion of the buildings has been going on since the year 2000 that I'm aware of.
It's been a while.
It's been 20 years we've told. I mean, TransCare, all of them. Where do we park our trucks? This one's at somebody's house. This one's out in the snow. You know, I've seen it all. You know.
Well, we've missed some
Right now.
opportunities here with some of the fire departments. We could have added an ambulance base to them with those new ones ever since 2000. We could have done something even with those. So there's a number of different ways of being able to handle that, but it's in the process right now, and it will come to the head before 3.5 years are up.
All right. Are there any further questions regarding the study or the ambulance audit?
No, I think we're heading in the right direction anyway, and I make a motion, we go ahead and allow that. Hopefully, we get results.
I'll second it.
Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Dreer, second by Mr. Bush, to allow the $25,000 for the ambulance audit. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Appropriations approved. Thank you, Ben. Our last appropriation is more of, it's actually 4 appropriations. It is regarding the jail capital project. There are 4 individual accounts being affected for the jail. This is the cash we are setting aside to fund the jail. There are 4 amounts that have been proposed to collectively fund the jail project in addition to the bonds. The first one is from Cume Jail. It is for $1,252,511. So these will have to be approved all separately. The second one is for certified chairs for $2 million. The third is the rainy day for $1,069,731. And the fourth is for public safety for $2 million. So we are not touching the general fund money. The certified shares in the public safety are the local income tax money. The Cume Jail is money that we had already set aside from public safety and certified shares, so we had already moved it to that account. So that's all local income tax money. And the rainy day is also money that we had set aside, and most of that came from previous money we've set. So it's like a savings account. So. Well, I need approval for each one. The first one is the Cume Jail for the 1.252 million.
Yeah, well, I got
Yep,
just a
you're-
question.
Yep.
I think we should make clarification. We keep mentioning new jail. This is
new
not a new
jail
jail, it's
addition.
a renovation.
Yes, it's a renovation and an addition.
Okay.
So, correct.
And that total's gonna end up being,
Six million something.
Yeah.
pardon?
6 million. Can't remember the exact number. It's in the minutes.
It's from the last, it's 6,000,000,
300,000.
322, 242. I have
TJ's
6,322,000,
It's your fingers.
242.
$2.
All right.
That's what I got.
We just have a lot of taxpayers out there that think that's gonna be dozed over and do a bill. We need to at least keep them informed that it is a renovation.
Yes, it's a renovation and they're also adding on additional cells. So it's not a completely new building, but there's new being put onto
The
it.
new sheriff, the new structure, is it footprint wise, is the new structure as big as the existing structure? I mean, I haven't seen the blueprint, the layout of,
The number of beds in it will be a little bit more than what we currently have, but there's also, we're moving some beds from where we currently have some back to the building.
but I mean, physically, the exterior view of this building's gonna appear twice as big as what it is now.
No, it'll be taller, it's a two-story building, or technically a story and a half, but
Yeah.
I think there's pods upstairs and pods
Okay.
downstairs. But no, as far as the footprint, no, it'll be about half the size of the
Okay.
building. It'll go from the
That's
state
the-
highway fence, actually 2 feet past it, on one corner.
So that's the
and
new
about halfway
structure.
in the backyard. That's the current facility.
So there is some new, I mean, there's
Yes.
50% new structure.
Right.
Just that it's going up instead of spread out.
Right.
Okay, so the first one I have is the Cume Jail, the $1,252,511.
Motion made.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Weir, a second from Mr. Somerville, to allow the Cume Jail official appropriation of $1,252,511. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no.
Aye.
Okay. Appropriations approved. The next one is from $2 million for certified chair, from certified chairs, excuse me.
Motion.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Bush, a second from Mr. Somerville, to allow the $2 million from certified chairs for jail capital project. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no.
Aye.
Appropriations approved. The third one is for $1,069,731 from the rainy day fund for the jail capital project. All those, I need a motion and a second.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Mr. Somerville and a second from Mr. Brown for the rainy day to the jail capital projects. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no.
Aye.
Appropriation is approved. The last appropriation is for $2 million from public safety for the jail capital project. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion for Mr. Somerville, a second for Mr. Brown for the $2 million from public safety for jail capital project. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no.
Aye.
Appropriation is approved. Alright, that is the end of our additional appropriations.
So that makes the jail fully funded.
Correct. Alright, open issues, we have the salary study. I would like to give everyone an update regarding the salary study and from the salary study committee. We've discussed the salary study. We received from the company a internal amount and an external amount for salaries. The internal amount compares everyone within the county, they might be doing the same job. The external takes other to account our county, but other counties, also other like private companies. What you might get paid working, somewhere that's not a government entity. We received those numbers. The external range, or the external numbers gave us a range, so we had a low, a mid, and a high point within that range. Everybody fell within that range. There were some that were more on the low end, some were in the mid range. Nobody went above mid. Actually, nobody actually hit the midpoint. After looking at it and looking at what we budgeted for last year, we've left in a little bit extra in the budget to account for the salary study. However, we would like to recommend from the salary committee to go to that external mid-range number so that everyone would make an average pay of what they would work, whether it's here or down the road 5 miles. We would like to hit that midpoint. We don't have enough in the current budget. So we would like to propose that we take that budgeted $1,000 amount that we had and give that to the employees as their raise for the year, but as a bonus, not necessarily on the salary ordinance. We did this once before when we had extra money at the end of the year from the health savings. We gave them the lump sum $1,000. This is what we probably would have anticipated as a raise anyways. It was the typical amount that we normally do. We would like to give that to everyone, and then for the 2022 budget, come back and put the new salary amounts in so that way they can be appropriately budgeted. I spoke with payroll, and this would be easier for them in the long run since some people are paid from different funds. To do an additional appropriation, we'd have to calculate what was budgeted, what wasn't in each individual fund that they get paid from. Right now, we have that money in the budget to do that $1,000. If we do it then, and then we can give everyone their new salary amounts for budget for 2022.
How much would that be if we raise that to mid-range?
It's different for everybody. Like everyone's on it.
I mean, total.
Total.
Yeah.
I don't have the exact number. There are a few departments where we have to make sure we lined them up. We've had a little bit of difficulty from the results we got from the study. We're about $100,000 short from our budgeted number because everything we budgeted was not being spent currently because of the difference. So we're around $100,000. They gave us a job description that didn't necessarily match up with our salary ordinance description that we had given them. So we want to make sure that we have everybody in their exact position where they're at before we, and we would also like the council's blessings to go about it this way, because we want it to be as accurate and as fair as possible before we do anything.
Are you gonna let the public speak?
Yeah, if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
In September 15th of 2020, and I know 3 of you sitting up there were not a part of the council at that time, and several other people weren't a part of the auditor's office. At the September 15th of 2020 council meeting, at the timestamp 3615, you stated that no one would get a pay cut, and at 3316, it stated that it will be retroactive to January 1st of 2021, this pay raise. This salary study pay raise would be.
Right. And no one is getting a pay cut.
And then again, in June 14th of 2021, timestamp 39.00, you stated that it would be retroactive to January 1st, 2021. for this pay?
And when we signed on to the
Salary.
salary study, we anticipated receiving the results in spring. We got the results in the last week of May, and we also got a range. We didn't get the exact number. If you wanted us to use the exact number, then the raises will be much smaller. If we are trying to go to the midpoint range to make up for that, to allow for an accurate fair pay amongst like an external range as well. If you look at just the county-wide, from our size to other counties, we're being paid well. They also did a study on the benefits, and our benefits are at what everyone else has or above.
I'm not disagreeing with the benefits, I'm
So
disagreeing with the
we're
salary
trying to
study.
make this as fair and equal as possible. We know it's taken longer than we anticipated. When we did say we'd make it retroactive, like right now, if we went retroactive, we'd probably pick maybe the low point and go from the low point.
Why would you do that?
Because we'd also have to budget in the next year's raises for
We don't
2022.
have the money to go to the midpoint this year
So what,
without an additional,
Without
right?
additional appropriation, but you do each
We are
additional appropriation at every council meeting,
we do,
correct?
but it is going to take the additional time because there's more funds than just one fund of taking it out of. And then I can't guarantee that that fund has the money to go to midpoint for this year.
So this is something that really shouldn't have been put on the table for our salaries for 2021 in September of 2020.
We didn't, I mean, I can't tell you, like, back then, with the assumptions we had at the time, we thought we could anticipate to do this. We were given like a time frame, and we were told that it would probably take less than what they told us, so we anticipated being in the first quarter of 2021, not being retroactive from August back to January. By doing the $1,000, you're getting it in a lump sum. If we had never done the salary study, that probably would have been the same amount, and you had to wait till December to get it. Now you're probably gonna get it in August. Everyone is I mean, since we don't have the money, that means the raises are typically more than $1,000 because it's not enough in the budget to cover it.
If I remember correctly, we didn't get a raise last year either. Year before.
Yeah.
2020.
So
So if we go 2 years, we didn't get one last year, you're gonna give us a
you
1,000.
didn't, there was no raises given for 2021. The
Yeah.
$1,000 was given for 2020. It's been several years ago when there were no raises given, and then at the end of the year, we gave everyone the $1,000 bonus because we saved money on the health insurance that year. So every year, there's been at least $1,000 given, whether it was added to the salary amount or given as a bonus check.
I thought, we didn't get one for 2020, right?
So 2021, you didn't get one. There's not been one for this year, and that's where we're at. We're asking the council to give that $1,000 for 2021. So every year, it would be at least $1,000 additional amount so far.
I mean, the salary study wasn't a salary raise study, it was a salary study, so we don't
And we are
know-
actually in line with other current
Right.
counties.
I mean, we
are
didn't
looking to
know
raise
what
it
the
for the
results-
external amount because we don't want to lose our people. You know, government is a service and you're only as good as your employees. And so we are asking to go to the external amount that includes outside private industry, which that typically pays better than governmental units. If you look at the AIC report for our pay compared to other counties, we're in line already. We are asking, there's so many other counties or employment opportunities around us, we want to be able to retain our employees. So that's why we're asking to go to the external amount.
You're saying counties our size?
Yes, counties our
Yeah.
size.
Rather than yell, I'll come up here.
Yeah.
And I promise I won't be as long as Britain. Teasing you. Yeah. I can't go an hour and a half, Britain. So, for the new people, there was a salary study ordered, and how that was done was a consultant was hired, and the office holders were asked by the consultant, I think vis-a-vis the auditor's office, to gather certain things. Okay, what do your employees do every day? Who does what? And be exact. So I don't know what other offices did, but I assume they did what was requested. We spent a lot of time on it. And then we had a conversation with either the consultant or somebody that worked for the consultant's firm. And that was a long conversation about, you know, what do your people do, what's important, what do you need? It covered the waterfront. So we send all of that in, and I don't know what month that was sent in. I'm guessing, when was it requested? You say September of last year?
The contract in the additional wasn't approved until later that year, and then I believe November, December, each office was asked to submit
Boy,
paperwork.
for some reason it seemed like it was earlier than that, but it may have been November, December. Anyway, so we ship all this paperwork to the consultant, and then they send us back, they sent me back, I'm not going to speak for a group, they sent me back job descriptions that were just, I mean, generic, you know, like, I think my office requires a lot of specificity and has a lot of specific job duties. And I got back job descriptions like data entry. I mean, what is that? So we redo it, send it back. That's the last I heard from them. I didn't hear anything after that. I had no idea this was been back since May, okay? So when I heard that it had come back, I sent an email asking for a copy, not of the whole study, but the copy of my portion of the salary study. And for some reason, I can't have that, the numbers, okay? That they're still being worked on in-house, whatever that means. So these words being used, midpoint, average, I mean, those aren't always the same. You know, are we talking median? Are we talking average? What are we talking? So we're sitting here with a consultant's report, and you just granted one for the ambulance company, and this would be what that would be like. They spend the 25 grand. The commissioners get a report back, and you guys can't see it. And so you ask Britton, hey, did you get that back? Yeah, but right now I can't share it with you. Well, why not?
I know you asked Brenda this question, and I think Brenda replied that once we have a final agreement of what we want to do with it, it would be given to everyone. And then as far as the descriptions go, the company had contacted each individual office holder with those descriptions, and you had a chance to review them.
Right.
And so I guess it was understood that obviously once they were done, they were sent back to you, but we realized today that was not the case that you brought it up. Brenda has said that there is a copy in the auditor's office for anyone that wants copies. And I know I mentioned that earlier, but until today, we didn't realize that the company did not send them back to the office holder. They had the contact information for each office holder, and they had done it before, but we were not aware that they didn't do it on the final time. So I apologize for that, but they are available.
Yeah, and we had that talk today about the job descriptions. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about, and this is the email from Brenda to me, Bruce, the study is back but is not completed in-house. I spoke with Ashley and she said it would be released when completed. It is on our agenda for the council meeting. My request was, let me see my portion of the salary study, okay? Because here's what's going to happen. In 6 weeks, I'm coming back for a budget hearing, all right? You're going to have a salary study. I'm not going to have it, even though that salary study wouldn't have been done had we not gathered the data to do it, okay? The only reason the study's done is the office holders did what they were asked, and they sent all of the information in, and I'm sure the auditor's office added to that. Perhaps there was pay information added to that. But the study is back. My question is, why can't the office holders see what the numbers are from the consultant for their office?
So it's not, the report we received is not by office. So your office and the clerk's office and the auditor's office are all mixed together in categories based on, they took what you told them they did and they assigned point values. And then they have a matrix that they use to assign it into each individual category. Off the top of my head, I don't know how many categories there were, but then each
5, I
category,
think.
each category has those
think
typical areas within that job. So when you have your department, it's not necessarily a report that I can just give you your department.
Well, you could give me the whole thing then.
And like I said, once we figure out where we're going with it, I mean, that's why we're asking to go to one point. We're not asking to go each individual off and say, well, I think this person deserves this, I think this person deserves that. We're not, that's what we want to get away from. And so that's why we are asking to go to the external midpoint in that salary range that they gave us.
But actually, let's speak English. How do you go to a midpoint? First, what is the midpoint, an average, or is it the median?
So they gave, basically after, I don't remember exactly how many hundreds of different, in their database, they have different jobs that fill in those categories. They give you basically the lowest and the highest. They've also thrown out the outliers. You know, if someone makes a lot more or a lot less, they take out a percentage, like the top 5 on top of each end. So that way those outliers don't affect that average. They give you the low point, so if you go to say you're going to do this job at a private company, you can expect to see it within this range. And within that range, we take the middle of that range.
Okay. The problem is when you work from the generic to the specific, okay, and that would work, I think, in any of our professions, okay? So let's take accounting. If we describe a CPA's job as handles payroll, does bookkeeping, travels, that doesn't tell you anything about a CPA's job, okay? Litigation secretaries, the same thing. So it sounds like what's happened is, instead of being specific, they've been general, and they've tried to fit people into general categories, okay? And it's kind of like saying the average shoe size in this room is a 9D. That might fit somebody. It might not, but we all got to wear it. I mean, it doesn't make sense. So,
but there has to be a common point. Like, we can't, you're not going to find necessarily comparable for every job unless I go to each county and say, what does this person make? And when I go to that county book, because it exists, I mean, that's what we started with, that's what we looked at. You know, each county reports their salary for that position. And when we look at comparable county size, we've tried that, you know, and there's some counties that don't report, but we're kind of in line already. And that's why we've asked to go to the external number, because we're losing people to the external market, not just the county government side.
So my question is, why can't the office holders see the numbers that you're talking about? I'm not sure what the confidentiality is here.
And that's what we said. When we have the numbers, will be out there.
You have the numbers.
But until then, everyone's going to come back and argue, well, we want the high point because we think we should have been in this category.
So you don't want this conversation.
We can have the conversation.
No, we can't, because I don't have the numbers.
Well, whether you have them or whether you're not, it's not going to change what the midpoint number is.
If you didn't have the numbers, what would you be proposing? Let's pay the midpoint. What's the midpoint? I can't show you the numbers, Ashley.
We are trying to collectively get everyone on the correct category first, because that's been the biggest problem, is that when we give them the salary ordinance, they use different title descriptions. So we are going to we had to look at what someone used to make to what they put on the schedule. So I can't give you, yes, yours are right here, because there's been some of these categories, we have to figure out who they're talking about on the salary ordinance.
At the end of the day, though, okay, we have to have a business conversation in the budget hearing.
Correct.
All right.
And that's why we're getting so close, is why we've recommended to do this, the new amounts at budget hearing, because we're going to turn around and in 2 months, going to redo salaries.
But we're not going to have the numbers to even know what you're looking at. My point is this: if you hand out that book of numbers, okay, and I look and I see deputy, well, that doesn't apply to my office, all right? Or I see court reporter, that doesn't apply to my office. if I see highway equipment operator, that doesn't, so I'm gonna be able to pretty well narrow down the group, I hope, because if I can't, you can't, okay? So, if I have the numbers, it sounds like, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're afraid for people to see the range. You're afraid for people to say, okay, the high is 60,000, the low is 30,000, the midpoint is
I'm not saying that
45,
at all.
if it's the midpoint.
I'm saying that instead of going to each office and trying to before the process is done, we would like to bring it to the council as a whole and say, here's what we have, these are the findings, these are what we would like to do with the information we have. I mean, we're not
Why-
hiding it.
But what, yeah. No,
It'll be
can
there
I
when
have
it's
a copy?
done. I guess you're just asking for it before it's done, is what?
It's done. You paid for it. You have numbers in front of you, or you couldn't have picked the midpoint.
Yes, the report is done, but I'm saying before we
We're
decide
done.
what we can do, we're constrained within the budget numbers too, so
No,
we have to
I
figure out
get
what to
that.
do with it.
I get that. If I come in and let's say the high is $350,000, I know I'm not getting that, okay?
The
But
range
you're
isn't
gonna
that
tell,
far.
but you're gonna tell me, we can't pay you that for this, what this person does. Okay, that's the conversation we're gonna have in the budget hearing. I don't understand why the numbers that supposedly go with the salary study job description aren't brought to the office holder so we can look at them. I mean, I'm not sure what work is being done there.
And that's where we have made this request that if we do the budget number, like give everybody the $1,000, then we can take these numbers to the budget, so that way each department has their numbers. I mean, you'll have the chance to come and say, okay, there's the number we have for the salary study for your budget.
When would I get those numbers?
Whenever we agree to go, if we want to do that. I mean, if not, then we have to come up, and if council says we don't think that midpoint is a good
No,
sign, then we need to look at maybe we go to 2/3 of
No,
midpoint.
you've got the discretion to do what you want. I'm just questioning, do you have the discretion to hold back a consultant report that we paid for?
He just wants to see the report.
I want to
He
see
could
the
care less
report.
about the
I want to see the
dollars.
numbers.
Well, I mean, maybe I'm confused. The purpose of the salary study was to see, are we on par? Are we where,
To
are
see the
we
range of
close?
numbers, sure.
I don't know if it was necessarily, what should we be paying somebody? It's, are we in the ballpark as a county? I mean, that was my understanding.
I disagree with that.
What?
Because we didn't get, when we met last year for our salary, the salary ordinance, it was said, well, we're not gonna do anything until we get this back so we can see what we need to do.
Well, you can't
Now you
disagree
got
with
it
my
back.
opinion. My opinion's my opinion, but. I
Oh,
mean-
sure, okay, that's fine, but at the meeting I was at, it was for,
And those were our intentions, because we
Right.
anticipated having this back by like March. You know, we didn't anticipate not being, almost August, and not having.
We
no.
created, the point of this was raises. Every year, the council were giving $500 raises to
Right.
part-time people and $1,000 raises to full-time people, period, across the board. So some people said, well, gee, the guy making $20,000 a year full-time is getting a $1,000 raise, he's getting this percent. I make $50,000, I'm getting 1,000, that's a 0.2% raise from here, whatever the number is.
Right.
So our point was to say, well, first of all, are we on board with understanding, is this guy making too much? Is that lady making too
Right.
little? We don't know. So the salary study was to try to focus in on what are they making? And then the raises,
Or a separate
we're gonna
issue.
be, we were gonna
There's-
talk
there's
about
some-
percent, like, say, okay, everybody's on the right, everybody's making the right salary now we can talk about 5% raises.
Right, right.
Or 4% as money allows.
Neil, I
It
think
wasn't-
you proposed the salary study, and I thought it was an excellent idea.
I don't know if
okay?
I
And so-
brought it up.
So when it got done, my only question is, you have these, and I don't know when you got these. These are job descriptions, okay? Kind of general, but they're job descriptions. So we got those tonight, and there are supposedly numbers that someone can look at and attach a range to this, to this group of employees. Okay, let me be specific. Here's investigator. Okay, so this is a job description. Somewhere in these numbers are going to be numbers that probably have that word in it. Okay, so I'm not going to confuse his number with court reporter or things like that. So I'm going to buzz through here. I don't care about the other numbers, what they are. I'm asking for them for my office, but it sounds like they're not split by offices.
There is a
Okay.
department section, but within that department, it doesn't specify, like, some of them are cut and dry, whereas some of them are not. And so we had to match up the previous salary amount with what was given from the salary ordinance to match those up.
But if we had those numbers, we could have this conversation in the budget hearing about, do we agree or do you agree with us about where this employee or this group of employees is defined to be, okay? But if we don't have those numbers, I'm back to why don't we have them? I mean, I'm not sure what the mystery is.
Well, ideally, we wanted to be able to give the numbers and say, this is where we can go with it. And then that way you have that number for budget hearings
Right.
to discuss. And that's where we kind of have gone tonight, asking to be able to take this midpoint number and put that in the budget, so you have that number. You know, I can give you the whole thing, but I don't want to get people's hopes up that they're going to go to the top of the scale, because right now we can't afford that, you know? So that's why we were asking for the midpoint number to be in the middle. You know, we're not the worst, but we're not going to be the best. And so that was the whole thing. Like, there is no intention to keep it from everybody, but we would kind of like to have an idea of what's being offered before we give it out.
I have a question about your midpoint. I mean, I'm grateful for any raise. I really don't care. I'm grateful. I like what I do. I enjoy it most of the time.
What do you do?
Highway
Highway.
worker.
Like a
Newport
maintenance worker?
Yes.
Okay.
Work equipment, truck driver.
I understand. Thank you.
I love my job. I like being here. The midpoint thing. So if you're gonna bring everybody up to midpoint, somebody who has an education and went to college and stuff like that, opposed to somebody who just graduated high school. You know, both of them like what they do. You're gonna make them both even?
At the same job?
That was my point earlier.
Yeah, because the job requirement is what it is. If you have a college degree, you probably shouldn't be doing certain things in the world if you don't want
Well, I
to.
mean,
What is a midpoint number?
maybe I'm misunderstanding what
So
you're
it's
saying.
like,
If they work in the same
you're
office,
you're saying like
your office is
the secretary made like 20,000 to 30,000, so it'd be 25.
Come to a job where you
So it's
got
the middle of
higher
it.
education,
Some
maybe more
secretaries make
experience.
20, some make 30.
Opposed to someone who's
So you're
gonna
Like
walk
as
off the
an
street
investigator.
and
I agree with you.
Right?
You start at 3,000 less than you're off the street though, 'cause that was
But,
a few years ago.
but the jobs aren't advertised as commensurate with education. They're advertised that you
Well,
need to
some
be
of
able to do
them-
these.
some of them are.
Okay.
And some of them are-
I'm talking specific
Oh,
here
I'm
with
sorry.
his, but, you know, his point about his specific office is that the job, you know, if you come to the highway department and you take a job as a heavy equipment operator and you have a degree in medicine, you take the
Right, I
job,
get it.
you know.
Yeah, highway department, I'm okay with. I was just wondering about the courthouse here.
Well, that's, yeah, well, I mean,
That's-
it's
that's-
addressed, I mean, they don't, the midpoints are the
Highway,
mid.
I completely understand. That's fine with me. I was just trying to.
I guess I'd
educate myself on the
yeah.
courthouse.
To me, if I can interrupt, I'm sorry. The value of this range allows somebody to come in during the budget hearing and say, okay, A, who fits at the midpoint? And get your definition of midpoint, okay? A person with 2 to 3 years experience or whatever that is. And you say, okay, I have this person and the reason I believe it should be above the midpoint is this. They have 15 years experience, they have this and they have this and they do this. And it allows a conversation to occur that otherwise doesn't, because frankly in the past, the budget process has always been somewhat odd, okay? Florinda will come up with her numbers and give them to you. And she doesn't call me and say, okay, here's what I asked for. and I come up with my numbers and I give them to you. And then we come in and you've always been gracious and you listen, and I think we get a lot of things done in those hearings. But what I always thought was missing is that once you hear what the office holder has to say and you guys talk, you never call back and say, hey, can you come in for another 15 minutes? We'd like to explain the decisions that we've made, okay? Like this year, we didn't know what was in the budget until well into January, I think it was, of the year. Now, there are reasons for that, but it would be nice to know that maybe in October or November, you bring a person in and say, okay, look, you're going to have this much to spend on bridges.
Well, and so at budget hearing, like, we typically go through each line, and the salaries were the only thing that we didn't decide on an actual amount. We left the amount in, and then so in our October meetings when we adopt the budget, and there were no changes. So anything that we would have discussed in the September budget meeting in front of, I mean, any account that has a balance was discussed in front of the office holder. So there were no changes made. So at our October meeting, there were no changes to any of those accounts. We also left in the salary amounts to give that buffer zone, and like I said, that buffer zone wasn't enough for where we want to go. That's why we're asking to do it this way. There was no change to any of the accounts. I can't recollect in a year we've actually changed the amounts in October versus the adoption, like from the actual budget hearing in September. We typically haven't changed an account number after we discuss it with the office holder. So I mean, none of that happened. I mean, whether or not it was communicated that way or not, but it hasn't been.
But I don't think I knew the salaries. That maybe I didn't come to the meeting where you adopted the salaries, but.
So when at budget hearing, we basically stated that we were leaving the budget the way it was, and then that when the salary study came in, we would adjust it then, but we were leaving all those amounts in the actual budget. Like I said before, though, with the anticipation that we were going to receive this in that 5-month period, and then some of the process took longer because it took longer to get some of the responses back. And it's unfortunate for the offices that did return their stuff on time, but we had to have all of them back in too. I know that took longer than expected. There were a couple other things that came up that took longer than expected, and like I said, we anticipated in March to have this, not basically the first week of June is when we were able to discuss.
So back to the analogy of the ambulance study. When it comes in, do you want to hear what the numbers are? Or do you want Britain to say, no, don't look at those. Just tell me, do you want the contract or not?
That information is there, and we're not withholding it on purpose, like just so you can't have it right now. It will be out there. But we would like to give you a number to say, hey, we're trying to go to this. That's where
awesome.
That's where I would like to have, as a committee, to be able to say, this is where we want to go with it, and this is why, and here's your numbers. But instead of just letting you speculate over it for 2 months and worry about it.
No, you can tell me where you're going. I just like to see the range of numbers.
I think the range is very small,
that
actually.
we paid for.
It is not very.
It's like hundreds of dollars.
Here's my concern. I haven't seen many consultant reports that are very specific. They try to. This guy is not going to come back with a report, or this consultant, Baker Tilly's not going to come back with a report and say, you guys need another half ambulance and you need to pay another $172,000. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be more vague, okay? And you can tell that by the job descriptions, okay? They took out the names and made general job descriptions, which might work so long as you can identify them. I'm just saying, if there's a range of numbers in the report, why can't we see those?
So, I guess, point of order, or whatever you want to call it, what we're talking about is whether we're going to give the $1,000 to the employees as not a bonus, but stipend or whatever.
Right, it's a one-time payment.
So,
of
and then we got
$1,000.
another question here is whether we're gonna provide the report. And third, it's been raised by, I'll say the public, is they're anticipating a raise or anticipating, a reduction. And I don't think anybody's proposing anything. The only thing we're doing here is proposing, to give the county employees this stipend. It's not part of their salary, just a stipend.
Correct.
So, and then my other thought is, I'll make the motion that we provide it to the department heads and let them see it. But hopefully we'll develop that report to some type of labor grades, I'll call it. That's what I'm accustomed to.
Right.
Well, it is already out. I mean,
Yeah.
they've already put them into each individual, category.
I seen that. But I mean, it's a study. We can do anything we want to with it.
Yeah, and that's where I
Right.
would like to be able to give you a direction of which way we're going with it when you get those numbers, so that way you understand where we're coming from and what, where we went with it. Because sometimes we don't want there to be misconfusion or misconceptions. We would like to have it laid out before it was given to the employees. So.
What kind of timeline are you looking at before you have that compiled?
And that's where we were asking tonight. This is the direction we would like to go with it, so we can look at the exact numbers. We have rough ideas. There have been a couple that we had, I just talked to Anita tonight to get clarification on a couple of them.
You spoke to Anita?
Yeah.
Did she get offered her pay raise to stay?
No. She was not offered a
What's
raise
the
to
question?
stay.
Did she what?
She was not offered a raise to stay. She knew the salary study was in the works and that there was a chance for a raise, but we did not offer her additional money to stay.
I don't think the council doesn't hire people. I
Nope.
mean,
No, I didn't. I can't do that.
No, we just had questions on the
Okay,
salary study
thank you.
too soon. So you will receive the numbers, they will be out there.
Does he know when? Or
We've got most of the spreadsheet completed. There were a couple tonight, like I said, we had to make sure they were lined up correctly. The salary study, there's a couple positions within the county that are split 2 or 3 different ways. The salary study, maybe put them as one, or gave them, instead of for us combining 2 or 3 part-time positions into one position, they maybe have listed them out as 3 full-time positions, so we've got to adjust those. The Parks Department is seasonal, they're not all year round. That was another one that's slightly different. So there've been a few anomalies in there that we have to, it's not just a blanket, here you go.
so it's still being analyzed, essentially.
Yes, there's still,
So when will we get the numbers?
Well, I don't know that we're gonna, are you actually gonna give them a number for budgeting
Or the copy
purposes?
of the report.
Or are you just gonna give them a copy of the report? I mean, I see that as 2 different things.
No, when I refer to numbers, I mean the report.
You just want the report. You don't want our proposed range for
No, I
budgeting
don't-
for
I don't think
2022.
I'm entitled to that.
Right.
And I think it's premature.
because ideally, when we talked at the committee, it was, we'd like to have the salary ordinance, which is, public knowledge. So you have the salary ordinance and then the recommended new number, and then that way you would have it all lined out on the same spreadsheet. As far as each department, we can break down the spreadsheet and make sure each department has theirs. Some are 1 page, split between one, some are split between multiple pages. Like I said, they didn't give it to us just one department. The highway department's on 1 page because it's all like one thing. The sheriff's department's on another. But within the offices, there's about multiple pages, so.
So do you anticipate having this ready in like a week to hand out, or?
Yeah, and that's why we wanted to discuss it
So
with the council
I
this
think you need
evening.
to give them a date of when you plan on having it out, and they go for it.
And that was why we brought it up tonight, to see what the council wants to do.
So say like a week from Friday, you'll probably have that compiled and ready to go.
Yeah, I
A week
think
from
it'll
this
be.
Friday, they should have it.
We can do that.
Okay. Let's move on. Thanks for shortening that time up, Bruce.
Running close, yeah.
You was
You
running
went and sit
close.
So, the original amount is, do we give the approval for the budgeted amount with $1,000 to do that for 2021?
Yes.
As a stipend.
Yes, as a stipend.
On salary stipend.
It's already in
Okay.
the budget, so it doesn't require the additional
Okay.
Do you need a
appropriation.
motion?
Yes, let's go ahead and vote on
Make
that.
the motion.
I'll
To allow it.
second. Marty seconded.
Marty second. You motioned?
I want to, Marty cut it short.
We third.
Y'all don't jump at once.
Double second.
Alright, so Brent. Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Bush, a second by Mr. Brown, to allow the additional $1,000 stipend to be given to employees from the 2021 budget. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Can I ask a
Aye.
question, when's that gonna be given, provided?
We'll have to talk to payroll to see when they can add that in. I mean, it'd be as soon as possible.
Okay.
So, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Alright, motion's approved.
Is that good, counsel?
Yes.
To clarify, that's for the employees, not for the elected officials.
Right, we actually did the elected officials, they did get that pay raise, but when come budget time, the elected officials will be included on the additional amount for the additional year. So, the elected officials will change in the September budget.
And as far as what Bruce spoke of on budget, at budget time, when we come to budgets, we, mine's simple, 5-10 minutes and we're out. We don't know, and Mike Phelps said it best, it's like getting Christmas in January or February when you finally know what your budget is. Nobody comes back.
But we don't have a.
You gotta wait on
We
Department
don't know
of
until
Labor and Government.
January exactly what our budget was set at. I heard the
They don't know if
conversation
you
from
accept
Bruce
it.
and you.
If we,
Until they
The
call me and
salary's
ask
the
me
only
for a
thing
budget,
Uh-huh.
they
I
don't
didn't
know.
and nobody's ever, when I walked out, I know that you guys are agreeing to attend.
So
the
even-
Meetings later on in the month.
so when we
don't
approve
know
it in
if-
October, it's not been communicated back that our approval was given, like,
That's right.
okay.
But do you not,
It kind of supersedes all that maybe Brent and Drew are on the board, that things got changed. And when you opened up your Christmas present in January, you're kind of left stunned that we talked about this.
It wasn't
And
trained.
we thought everything was agreed upon, but why am I missing $20,000 here?
does
I
not,
don't recall it being.
I'm not saying you guys have done it, but I know it had been done. I know
But I don't
mine
make
had been
it-
shorted 2 years ago.
Well, and that's something like, we were not aware, it wasn't communicated that, and so we can make sure that is done.
And what I would like to see is actually bring us back in and say, this is what we gave you.
right.
Okay, I didn't get this, tell me why. What was your justification for why I didn't get that?
I mean, I know in the last couple of years, we've gone like each item, and if there was a problem, we've adjusted it when they've been in there. But I don't recall in the last several years where we've gone back after
Some of us have been lingering around here for a few years.
and I understand, and that might have been like, I know in the last few years, we haven't done that to you guys, and
It'd be nice if we walk out and at least I know, like, this right here is definitely approved. This is what you can count on. But if you're going to change that later on down the road, at least give me a heads up, Mike, sorry about that.
I have a question.
You like 3 months to kind of plan how are you going to spend this money or allocate
Right.
money or move money.
Well, I apologize, but from what I'm used to at school corporation, we start budgeting, I'll say in August. Has to be sent in September. We may not get an approval from the state until January or February.
that is true.
So that's still the same process for here.
Correct.
In
And
this entity.
we haven't changed any numbers as a council.
But the state can.
But the state could.
And it's usually highway.
And yeah, the highway is different. The highway is probably the one that is like a Christmas present because it's based on the funding. And I know like this past year, we didn't get as much revenue as anticipated. The rest of them aren't usually altered by the state. So, I mean, I apologize if that's happened in the past. I know the last few years we've not changed it after you've came in for the budget hearing. But we'll do better to make sure that communication is sent out so you know for sure.
So can that be handled with a letter?
I mean, if you know that something got cut somewhere, just give
Yeah.
us a heads up so we can start.
I mean, not to my knowledge that it's happened in the last
past
several,
2 years,
but,
that has not happened.
I mean, we'll make sure that you know it hasn't, I guess, too,
Can we do that in the form of a letter? if there's been changes?
Yeah, I mean, we can
or
send
no
an email
changes?
out and say like, you know, these are the things we had to change, but we haven't had to do it yet, so I don't necessarily know, like, I
But,
just
mean,
tell you like,
The treasurer requested explanations, that would require another meeting, which I'm not opposed to, I'll go to any meeting, but
Right.
I'm just saying, we would have to have another meeting, sort of like a post-budget meeting.
Yeah.
To bring everyone back in and say, here's why we cut
typically, once
your
we've gone through a
stamp
budget, we don't revisit
money
it,
or-
you know, like we've finalized
Typically
it.
with me, everything is settled that day at
Yeah.
the budget hearing, except salary.
Correct.
Salary's done later, you find out.
That was the one thing that has probably been done afterwards, was maybe the salary. And other than that, I think the lines are usually each line item. But we will communicate if there have been changes in the future.
Thank you.
I think I'd like to say one last thing, at least on the salary study, going back to that real quick, is that, like you had mentioned about, you know, the council did say, hey, you know, once we get that, we'll retroactive that back January 1st, and I do recall that, and I think, you know.
That was our true intention.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is, I think we were optimistic at that time that that was gonna work, and I don't know that we realized what the report was gonna look like. Once we got the report, you start looking at it, and then you start talking to the auditor, and you start talking to everyone about how are we gonna do that. I don't think we understood our intentions of, that probably wasn't possible, or it wasn't easily done versus saying, we got the budget for $1,000 raise, that was kind of an emergency backup plan in case this report came in, it was all messy, and we didn't know what we were gonna do. So like I say, I will take your point about that, and you are right, and we did say that, but I think after we've discussed this, it's difficult, extremely difficult to do that, and I don't think we could have predicted that when we said that, so.
Penny's a perfect example of it, because she gets paid from different funds, and we have to do
Yeah, I mean, it was
four
really.
just for her.
It was gonna be additional appropriations, which I know you say, well, you guys do them all the time, we do. Sometimes we do $500,000 ones, because computers aren't any good anymore. You know, we do these big additional appropriations, which hopefully, you know, we don't have to do those things, but we do, but, you know, I guess maybe we're looking at the smoothest way to get everybody where they need to be with the, you know, the salaries.
And we truly have everyone's best interest at hand.
Definitely
We
no
were-
negative intent in any of it.
No, we are hoping for the best possible outcome across the board, and that's why we would like to move them up.
And we've even looked at, you know, we were looking at these numbers and, you know, the numbers that he's requesting, the prosecutor's requesting, and we're looking at, well, let's don't go with that, let's go to the higher one, let's get people more money. Even the sheriff deputies, they got a pretty good raise. I don't wanna compare, they got a decent.
They're still not paid enough, we'll go there.
Yeah, I could pay them $1 million if I
Still don't want
could.
your job.
But, I mean, when you need them, they're worth all the money in the world, but what I'm saying is, even they're gonna get, you know, additional on top of what we did last year specifically for the deputies, you know, so we were trying to do the best, and still are, but like Mr.
I believe that,
You know, prosecutors requesting information, I totally see his point. He's gotta come to the meeting, he doesn't know what to request. So is it gonna be, are the department heads requesting salary increases, or are we dictating what the salary increases are gonna be, and they don't know till the day they show up? I don't know. Maybe that was his point, but.
We'll have them next year.
Yeah.
So. All right, anything else? Move on to new business. All right, new business, we have the sheriff's commissary report. Are there any questions regarding the report, the commissary fund? No? All right, please note that we've received it from him. And then the last new business is the budget contract for Cox, Werner, Gamble, and Sullivan. This is where they do all the forms for, and the worksheets for DLGF and our budget numbers. Previously, before Cox, Werner, Gamble, and Sullivan, we had Bob Curley. And so I believe they've included in our packet just information from past contractuals. The contract is for $11,500, which is the previous amount we paid Bob. They're just information from the past. But I will need a motion to approve the contract. We don't have an appropriation for it, but just a motion to approve the contract. Yeah, we gotta sign the contract.
We're approving it for this amount.
11,500.
I make the motion, it's showing where it's weight in gold to us, when we sit down, especially with the libraries and outlying town, so.
Absolutely, they are worth their weight in gold. You second? Okay. I have a motion by Mr. Trier, a second by Mr. Bush, to approve the contract from Cox, Werner, Gamble, and Sullivan for $11,500 for budgeting. Budget consultation. Are there any further discussion?
Are they here when we're doing this budgeting process?
Yeah, Scott's usually the one that does a lot of it.
Okay.
And so, and there's calls where we make to their office throughout the year, but Scott's always here too.
Okay, great.
So, any other questions? All right, all those in favor of approving the contract, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed, say no. All right, contract's approved.
My
Is there
aye
any
was a
additional
yes.
public comment for this evening?
I was a little delayed in my
All
aye.
right, it's all right, I
Yes.
gotcha. Any additional comments tonight? All right, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. Motion in a second?
Yes.
All right. Thank you for attending this evening. The meeting's adjourned.
Need X's on some things.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't wanna go.